Hi, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Thyroid Refresh TV, a podcast dedicated to helping you live a thyroid healthy lifestyle. We're so glad to be back with you again. I'm Danna Bowman.
And I'm Ginny Mahar, and we are the dynamic duo behind Thyroid Refresh and Thyroid 30. We are thrilled to be here today with McCall McPherson to talk about fine-tuning your thyroid meds. So welcome, McCall. Thank you so much for joining us.
You guys, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. This is really special for me.
I wanted to say, for those of you who don't know, I have passed the baton to McCall, and she is the new fresh face, amazing queen bee, Chief-Hope-Giver, as she likes to say, over at Thyroid Nation, and the host of the podcast Thyroid Nation Radio. Tell us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind, because I want everybody to kind of know, physician's assistant. I want everybody to know a little bit about you, your background.
Yeah, so I'm a formerly trained physician assistant and a thyroid expert by way of being a patient. So I'm the founder of a functional medicine practice that specializes in complex thyroid disorders in Austin, Texas. And I really ended up there by way of really years of my own mismanagement of medication, misdiagnosis of hypothyroidism, and just really ended up 27 and going to bed at 3:30 in the afternoon every day. And eventually got my life back in the sphere of integrative and then ultimately functional medicine. Now, I've made it kind of my life's mission to hone in on that, to really understand the complexities of it and help give other people back their lives and advocate for the millions of other people who are suffering who aren't my patients.
Which we love. So we're so glad to have you. Thank you so much.
I want to share a little something I found on your website on modernthyroidclinic.com. And you say, I've been there. I've been the person desperately searching for relief of my own fatigue and brain fog living in my pajamas. I mean, it's just so relatable. And I remember getting on a 3-month wait list in hopes the doctor could help me, but not even being sure. Years later, I know now that there are millions of people suffering just like I was, unnecessarily suffering. I mean, this is what it's all about, right? The unnecessary suffering. There is way too much of it in this enormous community of thyroid patients. So what in your mind, McCall, is the number one reason for that unnecessary suffering?
Yeah, if I had to boil it down to one thing, and I think I can boil it down to one thing, it is the oversimplification of thyroid treatment. So we're taught that, hey, this condition is very easy to treat. You put them on the lowest dose of levothyroxine. There's one medication we're trained to use as clinicians, levothyroxine or Synthroid. Same thing as Tirosine. It's all basically the same medication. You just put them on the lowest dose, and then a few months later, you check their labs. If they need more, you increase it to the next dose. And if they still have symptoms, then it's not a thyroid problem. It's their problem or something else. And we think that, that should solve everything and people should be fine. And unfortunately, thyroid disorders are very, very complex to manage and to treat to get people into remission as far as their symptoms go and get them their life back. It's not a simple thing.
And how do you help people fine tune their medication? Can you tell us a little bit about the process?
Yeah, I can. So, for me, I view thyroid disorders and hypothyroidism as a very treatable condition. It is my whole motto, and you'll see this on Thyroid Nation now, that if you have hypothyroidism, there is no reason to actually still have thyroid symptoms. So if you have someone on your team that understands the complexities of it, they should take you all the way to a point where you don't have symptoms anymore. And the way that I do that with patients is very heavily rooted in labs, in biochemistry, and a full in-depth lab panel. And then basically I meet them, I have them collect lab data after they've been on the same medication dose for at least 2 months at particular times according to when they take their medication. And I have a lab guide on Thyroid Nation that you can track down if you need to. I take that data and I change their medication over the course actually of a few weeks. So I make small microscopic dose increases over time, or dose changes over time. So for about 2 to 4 weeks, I do that. From that last dose change, I make people wait 2 months before they get their labs drawn. They get their labs drawn, they come back to see me. We repeat that process until really their thyroid biochemistry, till their labs, every darn one of them are within a margin that's about this wide. Regular medicine believes they can be in a range as wide as the room that I'm sitting in. And I find if I can get people into an extremely tight and controlled lab range, their symptoms go away.
Well, and that's definitely been, I think my experience, Danna's experience, this is what we hear all the time. I had so many residual symptoms, only having my TSH tested, only taking levothyroxine. And it wasn't until I fine-tuned my medication and incorporated other, diet and lifestyle pieces that those residual symptoms went away. And it's so important, I think, for people to know that it isn't always this panacea that it's presented as, right? Levothyroxine. But I'm curious, this has been established among patients and forward-thinking physicians that TSH testing and levothyroxine just isn't enough. But I'm curious, have you received pushback on this from members of the conventional medical community?
Yes, personally and professionally. So I remember as a patient, I was already licensed by the medical board. So I was already perfectly primed to advocate for myself and for that physician to be receptive, right? I remember going to him, and back then there were not a lot of thyroid advocacy platforms, but I found enough information to know that I needed more than TSH. So I remember bringing him a Post-it note with TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3 written on it. And I said, will you please run these labs for me? Will you please look at more information than just my TSH? And he looked at me and he said, I'll take this and I'll go research it and I'll see if it matters, if I should run these labs or not. So he did. And he came back to me and he said, no. I looked on, PubMed, and TSH is the only thing that matters, so I won't. So that was one experience I had of kickback, which probably most people listening, or 60, 70% of them, can identify with. And then as a clinician, basically I have to, on a daily basis, tell my patients, at some point, you're going to go to your primary care doctor. They are, first of all, going to be upset because your TSH can potentially get low, because I don't treat only according to TSH. I much more emphasize a person's actual thyroid hormones. Because what a lot of people don't know is that your TSH doesn't even come from your thyroid gland. It's your brain's message to your thyroid. So why not actually check your hormones from your thyroid gland? So that's what I emphasize more, the output hormones. And the TSH is a more flexible number for me as long as it's not too high. So, I tell them, hey, at some point your primary care doc's probably going to be upset with me. You need to know that. They're probably going to say, who is this McCall lady? And why does she have you on Armour Thyroid? She's crazy. You're going to have a heart attack. So I pretty much tell that to my patients a lot. And I'm like, you're going to have to be educated and informed enough to make an educated decision. Because the reality is by the time they do say that, you are actually going to be more informed about proper thyroid treatment, medications, and management than your doctor.
Which is crazy and funny all in the same, because I remember when I first got diagnosed, I just wanted the pill. I thought there was a quick fix. Now that I know there isn't, I definitely don't want just the pill, obviously. But at the same time, it's about educating. It's about educating the patients and whether they're receptive to that or not. Like, by the time they get to you, obviously, they are, right? Because anybody who's looking for functional medicine or integrative and all that kind of thing is basically looking for more, right? So they get it. But it's just crazy to me that we have to kind of push our way to educate these people. It's like that resistance of, they want the quick fix. I was one. They want, something that comes in a pill form or a box or a convenient drive-through, or, they want it to be easy. And we have to hammer and hammer it into them that they need to be their own advocate. I feel like that's kind of lifting. I feel like that's getting better. I feel like because we're doing what we're doing, hopefully more people know and are asking questions. What do you think?
Well, I think levothyroxine is the number one prescribed medication in America. And I think it's not going to work for a lot of those people, especially outside of lifestyle modifications, because the contingency for that medication to work is very lifestyle mediated. And so if they don't start asking questions, if they don't start looking for something outside of a quick fix, they won't get their life back. They'll be stuck in a world of pajama town forever, right?
Pajama town.
Seriously, pajama town. And what's
in there?
And what's
don't like it. No, don't want to go back there.
I don't want to go back there either. But so many people who get comfy there.
Oh, and they think
this is normal.
Lady, I mean, these women that come to me, they start. I mean, it's I was pregnant, and then I had a baby, and then I was breastfeeding, and then I wasn't sleeping, and then I figured that's why I was tired. And then I had another baby, and the whole cycle went again. And then my kids were in elementary, and then it was high school and soccer and cheerleading. And now all my kids are graduated from college, and I'm still really tired, but I don't have any more excuses as to why. Like they just accept this as their reality. And I'm like, no. I have 85-year-old patients who feel amazing, It's not because you're 35 that you're tired. I tell you that much. Or 45. I had a 46-year-old woman who works out 5 days a week yesterday tell me, well, I just thought it was because I'm 46. I'm like, what?
That's so young.
I know. I'm like, who? Her doctor told her that. I'm like, how old was your doctor?
Right?
No.
Well, and that's what so many of us hear. And I heard that from my doctor and from other patients. Oh, I have that too. And it's no big deal. You just take the pill and that's it. I mean, I was told even diet and lifestyle, that just doesn't really make a difference. You don't need to worry about that. It's just your labs are normal. Meanwhile, my health was absolutely crumbling, and I was exhausted from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed at night, being told that's normal. That's the aging process.
Right.
And it wasn't until I decided to stop believing that and demand a higher quality of life for myself and take the reins of myself that changed. So the work you're doing is so important. And just, we're always high five to, anybody who's on this shared path with us. Like, this has to change. It's got to get better.
Yeah. I have a question before you jump in, Jenny. I was going to ask you, are you okay with, for different people using different medicines as opposed to kind of like, in other words, like you really have your favorites like Armour, WP, Nature-Throid, and, Tirosint. I mean, do you stray outside of that? When you're fine tuning, do you have the whole box of all the different ones in your magic box of potions,
Totally. So for me, it's less about the medication and it's more about getting the biochemistry perfect. So I care less about how we get there and more about that we get there. So when people come to me and they're like, hey, McCall, I'm on levothyroxine. I want to get on desiccated thyroid because that's going to make me feel better. And it's a big process to take someone off 150 micrograms of levothyroxine and get them on desiccated thyroid. It's an uncomfortable process often. So it's much easier if you incorporate additional medications to their levothyroxine. And I'm like, no. Don't get stuck on this idea that, hey, you need to be on natural desiccated thyroid and it's going to make you feel better because it's natural. Let's take the shortest path to getting your biochemistry perfect. And that's different for everybody. It really doesn't look the same. Now, within, the realm of desiccated thyroid, there are medications that I prefer more than other medications because I feel like clinically I've seen them be more successful. But really, I'm wide open. The one medication I don't use alone is levothyroxine or, Synthroid Tirosint, mainly because people that come to me, I don't take insurance. I have a long wait list, all that, right? People that can take levothyroxine and feel good, they have no use for me. They can stop at their primary care doctor or endocrinologist, that kind of thing.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think that's because that's another message that I think is very pervasive in like thyroid support groups is, oh, you just need to get on NDT. It will solve all your problems. And that may be true for some, but it is not true for everyone. It did not work for me. It made me feel much worse. NDT, natural desiccated thyroid.
And let me ask, do you get specific about you take this in the morning and you take this in the afternoon, and or this you should take at night and then this in the morning? Are you specific about dosing and when as well?
Oh, so I am extremely particular about dosing. I was probably one of the first people, I was definitely the first person I know that advocated very strongly for twice a day dosing for desiccated thyroid. So anytime someone is on Armour, Nature Throid, WP Thyroid, all of those medications, this is a pearl for you listeners and viewers out there. Those medications, the active component in them increases and decreases in 6 to 8 hours. So you have to dose them in the morning and about 2 to 3 p.m., or you're going to hit a wall every day at 3 p.m. And if you're listening and you take it in the morning only, you're probably like, oh, I do hit a wall every day at 3 p.m. So I'm very particular about that. Yes. Is that you? Yeah. Have I not told you you need to dose that twice a day?
I think you did tell me, but I forgot.
No, it's huge, huge.
Okay.
And then the lower your TSH goes, the harder the wall you're going to hit.
Okay.
So the farther you get into treatment, the worse you actually feel later in the day. Yeah. And let me say one other thing, go back to what Jenny said, just because this is a problem I run into in clinic very frequently. Most people that have an acute, a sudden bad response to desiccated thyroid, when their doctor switches them from levothyroxine or Synthroid to desiccated thyroid, is not actually because they responded poorly to the actual medication. It's because of prescriber dosing error. And it's so important people understand this. So I want to go a little deep for 1 second. When someone switches you from levothyroxine to Armour, let's say, they calculate the equivalent dose and they take you off levothyroxine, they put you on Armour that same day. The problem is levothyroxine stays in your system for 20 days. Armour is immediate acting. So what they've done is they've doubled your dose one day. And so people become very uncomfortable and anxious and agitated, and they think they have a bad reaction to Armour, when in reality, that levothyroxine needed to be stopped and that Armour needed to be increased over the course of a couple weeks.
Wow, that's big.
So, yeah. Plant that in your thoughts for viewers and listeners if you have had a bad reaction to desiccated thyroid in the past.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the half-life is 11 days for levothyroxine. So half of it's not even out of your system for 11 days.
Wow.
There is so much to it. I mean, like you said, it's not something we can oversimplify, and really important to find a doctor who will, or any kind of healthcare practitioner who can listen to you, help you through this process and work with you to get to the right medication at the right dosage for you. Now, our listeners really, they kind of span the rainbow of thyroid diagnoses. So we've been talking mostly about hypothyroid conditions, which apply to, those of us with hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, excuse me, a lot of thyroid cancer survivors who no longer have a thyroid, or, who have undergone thyroidectomy for other reasons. But can you talk a little about how your process differs for hyperthyroid and Graves patients?
Yeah. Yeah, this is such a valuable thing because I like we said earlier before we started, I don't think a lot of people talk about Graves, and Graves people need so much support too. There's two kind of different ways that I approach Graves. One is kind of like the Hashimoto's component. You have to address the actual autoimmune condition. So you want to lower a Graves person's antibodies, and you do that by lowering inflammation and modifying their lifestyle. A lot of the work that you guys do here, right? So we want to reduce the actual hyperthyroidism effect of their antibodies by lowering inflammation. Okay. So that's one thing. Very commonly, you guys can write this down, listeners can write this down. I think every single Graves patient I have is on low dose naltrexone or LDN. So that's a very powerful way to lower their antibodies really, really quickly. So that's one thing. I address the autoimmune component to get rid of their Graves, to try and get them into remission. Then the other thing that I do that's a little more progressive that actually helps Graves people is Graves people get stuck in this roller coaster. They're strapped into a roller coaster of hyperthyroid, medium, hypothyroid.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're not uncomfortably overstimulated, they're on the floor not functioning.
Mm.
And so what I actually do is something called block and replace. So I'll block a little bit of their hyperthyroid hormones with Graves drugs, and then I actually put them on thyroid medication so that I can now control their hormones. When I leave it up to them, if I can't control it by getting their autoimmune condition under control, which a lot of times I can, but if I can't, instead of them being like this in their function where I can't control it, so it's purely left up to whatever their biochemistry does, I block that method.
Mm-hmm.
I block their body from being on the roller coaster, and then I help support them, and I put them on thyroid medication so that they feel good and they feel stable. And it's so life-changing for those people.
Wow. That's incredible.
Cool, right?
Yeah, because, just to be able to, because Graves is totally different, heart palpitation. I mean, it's just totally different.
They can't exercise.
Yeah, no. And so just to be able to give them that, because it's like you're always in this panic mode. I have a friend who has Graves. And so it's just a whole different thing than hypothyroid. You're like, hypo, you're, in your pajamas, like we said earlier, it's different for them. And so to be able to regulate that
right,
kind of quickly, like you're able to do if the other stuff isn't working, that's spectacular.
And normally what they do is they just make them all hypothyroid.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, they're either in a panic attack or they're not functioning. And it's so sad, because everyone's afraid. No, everyone's afraid to kind of poke the bear and actually let them feel okay. If I told an endocrinologist I was going to give a Graves patient thyroid medication, they thought I would have lost my ever-loving mind, but there actually is a way to do it. You block a little more than than they have, and then you give them a stable amount.
Wow. And just think of those poor souls out there, the few, very, very few out there like Tiffany who have Graves and Hashimoto's.
There's a lot of those.
Are there really?
Yes, a lot. Probably 50% of my Graves patients.
Really? Wow. Okay. I did not know that. Interesting.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Well,
wow.
one autoimmune disease, your chance of getting another is high,
That's true.
And a lot of Graves patients will eventually settle into hypo and Hashi.
Mm-hmm.
So their Graves component will go away and they'll end up just hypothyroid, which is easier on them, honestly.
So on behalf of the listeners who are out there going, I need this help. I know you mentioned you have a waiting list, and your practice, Modern Thyroid Clinic, is in Bee Cave, Texas. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do patients have to be in Texas to work with you? Like, how can they get this help?
So guys, part of my mission at Thyroid Nation is to give people the tools, the resources, what they need to help them get their lives back. Part of that is, yes, you can absolutely come to Modern Thyroid Clinic to see me, to see one of my PAs that I've trained. We're just outside of Austin. We're basically in Austin. You only have to come if you're out of state for the first visit in person. The rest can be done virtually or by phone. If you're within the state of Texas, you actually never even have to come. Everything can be done virtually. I have patients who fly in from out of the country as far as India. And I have one in Thailand now too. So you can fly in one time, easy peasy, and then you're free. But the other thing that I'm really doing, guys, that I'm so excited about is I'm starting a training course for physicians and clinicians. And so the more demand that I get for people requesting that, the more physicians and clinicians I'll get to sign up to take it. So I'll give you guys a link that you can put in the show notes.
Okay.
So people can register to be notified when a physician in their area is trained.
Oh, great.
And so, so that is my goal, so that everybody doesn't have to go through me, because there's one of me and there's a few people under me, but I want there to be people all over the country. There's too many people that need help for me to be the only person that knows how to do this.
Right.
That's great. Love it.
Thanks.
Well, we know there's some really diehard thyroidnation.com fans in our community who have been with Danna since the beginning. So can you give us a little insider intel on what your plans and dreams are for Thyroid Nation now that you're at the helm?
Yes. So, really my dream is to deconstruct the the kind of abyss and really packaged nicely for people the steps and the tools that they need to get their life back. I mean, I want to help facilitate giving people their life back. So from start to finish, that's going to look like moving people through a course step by step of what to do. We're hosting a webinar coming up very soon that's going to finish with, people getting labs and me helping consulting with their labs for free. I'm going to do the physician training course. So it's just really, we're going to box it up nicely so that it can be digestible for people in a way that will allow them to be empowered with knowledge and tools and resources to get their lives back.
So much exciting stuff.
That's amazing. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that it's you. I'm so happy it's you.
I'm so happy too.
So much love.
So much love.
You had a gift for the listeners today on Thyroid Nation. Can you tell us about that?
I sure can. So, part of what I really believe in is that labs matter, that, getting you into a very narrow margin matters. And that's really what I do all day in my practice. So what I'm giving you guys is my thyroid lab guide. So it's basically a little ebook for free where you can find out what labs you need and what they mean, and basically get the ranges, the exact particular ranges that your labs need to be in, that I get my patients in to give them their life back. So you can get that at thyroidnation.com/gift. And I think you'll like it.
And we'll put that in the show notes too. So just in case anybody didn't get it, thyroidnation.com/gift. I love saying Thyroid Nation.
Oh, probably miss it.
Right.
I do. It's great. I just love it though. This is fun.
Well, before we sign off, we always end with this question. What are your 3 main takeaways for the listeners today?
My number one takeaway is there is no reason to still have thyroid symptoms. So don't resign yourself to thinking that this is the way that it should be forever. Keep pushing until you no longer have symptoms. Number 2 is you need to find someone on your team that can help you get the right medication at the right dose. And number 3 would be, a split of really lifestyle. I mean, lifestyle. And in that, if I had to sum it up, so like if there's one thing that you could do in your life to help your thyroid, to help, heal some Hashimoto's, to help your conversion, it would be eat as many possible vegetables as humanly possible.
Okay, I don't do that, but I'm gonna.
As many, and if you don't, drink green juice, because you can get this many in this big of a cup.
Green juice. Okay, got it.
Love that.
Simplify.
Check. Love it.
Thank you so much, McCall. This has been incredibly informative. I mean, I know I'm just going to thank you on behalf of all the people out there listening, because I know they're going, oh, I so needed to know this. I mean, I definitely learned some new things today. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And for our listeners, you can find out more about McCall McPherson's work at modernthyroidclinic.com. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Thyroid Refresh TV, where we give you the inspiration and information you need to live thyroid healthy. To receive your free Thyroid Thrivers grocery guide, you can visit thyroidrefresh.com. And to learn more about Thyroid 30, our revolutionary 30-day wellness adventure, go to thyroidrefresh.com/thyroid30. You do have the power to heal, and we have the tools.
Also, just wanted to throw out there, we will put all of these links in the show notes. And again, you can find McCall at modernthyroidclinic.com and thyroidnation.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast and would like to help us continue inspiring and empowering patients worldwide, please leave us a review on iTunes. It would make our day, I promise, because you are what makes this community the amazing resource that it is. We so appreciate your listenership and your support. We're Danna and Jenny wishing you the best, and we'll see you next time.